Did you know that not all slave owners were white? That's right. In the brutal world of slavery in the Americas, a small but significant number of slaveholders were themselves black. It's a historical fact that shocks many, and one that's often twisted, misunderstood, or outright erased. But history is rarely simple. Today we're diving into one of the most unsettling and complex chapters of history. Black slave owners. Who were they? Why did they own slaves? And what does this forgotten truth reveal about the twisted logic of slavery itself? Hey everyone, welcome back to another Did You Know feature, where we uncover mind-blowing facts about science, history, and everything in between. Before we dive in, just to let you know that we're seeing that 55% of our viewers who watch our channel regularly have not subscribed to us yet, so we're asking you a favor. Before we start our deep dive, if you like us and want to support us, there's a free and simple way to do that. Just hit that subscribe button so that you never miss out when we put out new videos. We assure you that we will commit to bringing you the best videos each week. We also crave your feedback and suggestions as we aim to give you the best content possible. When we think of slavery, we picture white plantation owners and black enslaved people. And for the most part, that's accurate. The transatlantic slave trade was overwhelmingly orchestrated, profited from, and perpetuated by white Europeans and Americans. But in rare cases, free black people, especially in places like the US South, the Caribbean, and Brazil, owned slaves themselves. Some did so to protect family members, since freeing them legally could be nearly impossible. But others? They bought slaves to work their plantations, build their businesses, and, yes, even to accumulate wealth and status. It sounds paradoxical, but in a world built on oppression, even the oppressed were sometimes entangled in the system. Meet William Ellison, a name you probably never heard in school. Born into slavery in South Carolina in 1790, Ellison gained his freedom at age 26. He didn't just survive, he thrived. He built a cotton gin manufacturing business so successful, he became one of the richest black men in the South. And by 1860, he owned 57 enslaved people, not to free them, but to work them. Some reports say he even bred slaves to sell for profit. His operations mirrored those of his white peers, and his wealth was built directly on the labor of people just like him. It's a brutal irony. A former slave profiting from the same system that once shackled him. Then there was Antoine Dubuclet, another free black man who rose to immense power. Born into Louisiana's unique Creole culture, Dubuclet inherited a sugar plantation and expanded it. Before the Civil War, he owned over 100 slaves. After the war, he entered politics, becoming Louisiana's state treasurer during Reconstruction. A black man, once a slaveholder, rising to one of the highest offices in a post-slavery South. But not all black slaveholders were chasing profit. In fact, many were simply trying to protect loved ones. Imagine this. You're a free black woman in the 1820s in Virginia. Your daughter is still enslaved. You want to buy her freedom, but the law makes it nearly impossible to emancipate someone. So you buy her legally, and keep her on paper as your slave, just to keep her safe. Records show dozens of such cases across the South. Families who technically owned one another because the system gave them no other legal way to stay together. Ownership in these cases was an act of love, but the paperwork still classified their children, spouses, and siblings as property. The line between protection and participation blurred in the eyes of history. And what about women? According to historian Christine Walker in her book, Jamaican Ladies, free women of African descent in 18th century Jamaica were active slaveholders. These women, some former slaves themselves, used slave ownership as a form of economic survival and social mobility. They bought enslaved people, rented them out, and built wealth in a system that gave them almost no rights. One woman rented her enslaved workers to sugar plantations, pocketing the earnings. She was a businesswoman in a world built on bondage. In places like Cuba and Brazil, slavery lasted into the late 1800s. And just like in the US, a small number of free black and mixed-race individuals owned slaves. In Brazil, for example, some freedmen became landowners, owning a handful of enslaved laborers to work their small farms. In Cuba, free black people sometimes purchased enslaved relatives under legal loopholes. These were societies with complex racial hierarchies, where color, class, and cash all mixed to shape your fate. Here's the critical thing to remember. While these stories are real, they are exceptions, not the rule. Black slaveholders made up less than 1% of all slave owners. The vast, overwhelming machinery of slavery was powered by white colonizers, traders, and planters, driven by European imperialism and racial capitalism. But acknowledging these stories doesn't excuse the system. It shows how corrosive and far-reaching that system was. Slavery infected everything. It warped law, family ambition, even love, yes, love. So how do we know all this? The evidence is buried in U.S. Census slave schedules from 1850 and 1860, property deeds and wills, letters, court cases, and freedom petitions, and groundbreaking books like Slaves Without Masters by Ira Berlin, or The Half Has Never Been Told by Edward Baptist. These documents expose a world where race, freedom, and ownership collided in painful ways. History isn't black and white, it's layered, uncomfortable, and sometimes full of contradictions. Yes, some black people owned slaves, but that fact doesn't erase the centuries of brutality, genocide, and systemic racism that defined slavery as an institution. It only shows how deeply evil the system was, that even the formerly enslaved could become participants. So next time someone brings up black slave owners to debunk history, remember, truth doesn't erase truth. It deepens it, because the more we understand the past, the better we can dismantle its echoes in the present. This was a Did You Know? History Deep Dive. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more surprising and uncomfortable truths from the past.